Amy Rutberg, welcome inside the Crazy Ant Farm. How are you today?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Oh, doing great. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm in New York City. It's cold as always.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I'm already jealous because it's like hot and muggy here, and we've already hit summer down here in the
Basically.
south.
Oh,
So,
man. I would take hot and muggy. I'll trade it you in a heartbeat.
see, I'm from
ahead.
from New York, and so it's the one thing that I haven't acclimated to down here in the south is the heat. We'll never be okay with it. So, yeah, I would trade places with you in a heartbeat.
I remember getting off the plane in July when I was filming in New Orleans in July, and I just remember like being hit with this like sauna heat.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
It was like holy cat on a hot tin roof. Yeah, it was great.
Right, you literally feel the weight of the humidity. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's so different
sure.
because you're from Los Angeles, and so you're used to, sunny and comfortable. But boy, the humidity here, I don't think you can ever get used to the humidity here
It
in the
takes
Gulf
it to
South.
a whole nother level.
Yeah, it really does.
Oh, you guys are making me jealous. I can't.
Like it's cold.
Oh, so we have to let you know that we have a huge block of Daredevil fans, and they are extremely excited that you are on the show today. So
Oh, that's so cool. I love the Daredevil fans. They're just the greatest fans. I just love them.
yeah, and we've got a couple of questions from them that they asked us to ask you, so we'll be getting into that. But we also have a lot of listeners that are kind of new to who you are and new to the show. So what we like to do is kind of open up with a little bit about your background. And so I guess, how did you get started in the industry? Is it something that you always wanted to do, acting, or did you kind of fall into it? Or what's your background about how you got started?
I was one of those kids that if you met me, it was very clear I was going to go into the dramatic arts in some way. Excuse me. I was just a fearless kid that any opportunity to talk in front of people, sing in front of people, I would take it. I remember, my mother took me to SeaWorld once. I actually tweeted about this recently. My mother took me to SeaWorld, and it was like the Shamu show. And I was picked as like the kid audience, like volunteer. I think I was probably like 6 or 7.
Right.
And they come up, and then you go down there, and they say like I don't know what you have to do, like raise your hand, and it makes the dolphins jump or something like that, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then the guy at the end, he made a joke. He's like, "All right," so this is like after you met the killer whale, right? And he was like, "All right, so go ahead and jump on in." And I literally just started to jump in to the water. I was like, okay, that's what the audience wants. And they were like, they stopped me, and they were laughing so hard. They were like, nobody has ever done that. And then, of course, I just figured I was such a good volunteer that they'd want me for every show. So we didn't see anything else at SeaWorld. I just made my mother, repeat that show over and over and over again, hoping to get picked again. And, of course, I didn't get picked again because, you don't do that. You give other kids an opportunity. But, so I think pretty early on it was clear that that was in the cards.
Yeah.
That's my favorite line in there is like, it's what the audience wants.
Exactly.
I have to jump in the water.
Look at that reaction.
Understand, Mom. Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh, that's great. Now, your mom actually was in the industry a little bit too. I know, doing our research, I know that she was a model, but she also worked for Universal for a little while, right?
Yeah, where did you get that? Did I say that somewhere?
We're good at our research, Amy. We're very good at our research.
That's super impressive. Yeah, my mom was she was a model, and then after college, she went to go work in PR, and she actually she's like one of the heads of publicity for Universal for a while, like before I was born. But she did the Universal Amphitheater, so she handled like all the shows and the bands that came to Universal at the time. So she's got some crazy stories.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So, did you want to always be involved in film and television, or I think we saw that you wanted to do theater, correct? I mean, you mentioned singing and dancing.
I started as a theater actress. Yeah, I was doing a lot of theater as a kid. I did some commercials and stuff, but as a kid, I was always kind of mature. I was one of those like old soul kids. So I remember my mom would schlep me to auditions in LA because we lived in the suburb outside LA, and I would go in for like the 10-year-old with like the cereal box. And the casting directors would always be like, your daughter comes off like she's 16, and we really need a 10-year-old. So that was like the story of my life for film and television until I hit like 28, and then I sort of like caught up to my age.
Nice.
But yeah, I did a ton of theater. I did national tours and theater in New York, and I did a lot of theater.
That's
and
awesome.
we should mention you started early, right? Because you were quite the overachiever in school, so you were able to get started with the theater pretty quick in the teens because you graduated early, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was actually so into theater that my parents let me do this crazy thing where I started taking college classes when I was like 12, and then, long story short, I just ended up taking so much of them and building up enough credits that I graduated from high school and 2 years of college. I did like 6 years of school and 2 years of college and 4 years of high school. So I actually transferred to UCLA as a junior when I was 15.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a lot of theater stuff, and
So,
that was definitely the peak of my intellectual career, though. By the way, it's never gotten better than that.
I mean, you got to give yourself some credit. Your parents let you do something crazy, but you had to be like really, really on it and intelligent, especially for your age, to be able to achieve that. That's not easy. I can't imagine trying to do that at 12. Right. That's incredible.
Well, that's very sweet of you. I mean, I definitely had tenacity. I would say it was 50% me and 50% crazy parents. half my intelligence and half
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's great, 50% crazy parents. And then so, unlike so many, you went the opposite way. So many are trying to go out to L.A. You made the jump to New York. Okay, and that's where
I know.
and how was that, going
weird.
from L.A. to New York? It had to be a little bit of a culture shock.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was so enamored with theater. Mm-hmm. And, excuse me, there's that New York weather for you. I was so enamored with theater, and when I was about 17, I booked this really cool off-Broadway show here that I came and did for a little while, and then I booked a national tour of a musical, so I was on tour for like a year, and then I finished college, and then I kind of sat around L.A. for a couple of years, like going on auditions and playing a lot of poker, and then I went, you know what, I think I should go give New York a shot, because, that's like really what my calling is, theater. And then, funny enough, I moved to New York, and then like 2 years later, I was mostly done doing theater and had moved into TV and film, which I didn't expect. I kind of always thought that I would just do Broadway musicals.
Yeah.
But that's not the direction that it went, and I'm grateful. I mean, man, people who do Broadway shows, like 8 shows a week,
yeah.
I mean, they are so impressive. But you're really an athlete, especially like the musical theater ones. Like to sing at that level, like you're a professional athlete. So this is really the lazier thing to do, being a television actress. But in some way, but it's just as hard in some ways. I would say it's up there. But I definitely like what I'm doing now.
Nice. Well, you brought up playing poker, and now we heard that you became a professional poker player for a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll use the term professional in quotes. Like, let me put it this way. There was a period of time where the only income I had was playing poker.
Oh. I mean, at least you got by.
I wouldn't necessarily call it, I wouldn't call it professional. I mean, I didn't win any major tournaments.
Yeah.
But I definitely spent a lot of time in a poker.
So you weren't going head-to-head with Ben Affleck in the big tournaments, huh? Like...
Yeah, I wouldn't call Ben Affleck a professional poker player either.
Oh! you know.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
I've never played in a game with Ben Affleck. I have played in a lot of games with a lot of different celebrities who I will not name, but I have never played with Ben Affleck.
Oh, that's... I just love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, he's not Daredevil either. No.
Yeah.
Right? I know.
Just a little trash talk sprinkled in.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. So let's get into Daredevil, because I mean, first of all, congratulations. We were all horribly disappointed when it was canceled.
I know.
It was so groundbreaking. I've been a comic book geek since birth, so I was thrilled to finally see this hit and hit the way that it did. And it's just a great time to be involved with comic books right now, and to see the transition to screen the way that it's been happening is just phenomenal. So congratulations on being involved in that. Now, I want to ask you though, because when we talked to Royce, everybody always talks about Marvel and their secrecy and their clandestine operations and everything. And he told us this great story about basically he showed up to this room like the size of a closet, and he wasn't told what he was doing, and he said, just read this. And he got to do it like once, and then he was exited out and said, thanks so much. And then, found out later that, okay, hey, we think you got this, and by the way, it's Daredevil. Was it like that with you? Was it similar like that for everybody that was reading for that show, or how did that go down for you?
Oh gosh, I've never heard Royce tell that story. My experience was, I guess, similar. I just went to the casting office of the casting director, and I had auditioned for the casting director before. I got really close on a big role in House of Cards the first season that I didn't get.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. That was a bummer. That was one of the ones that really sucked. I know I got to meet David Fincher and work with him and everything, and I didn't get it. But that happens. That, by the way, most of my acting stories end with I didn't get it. Yeah. So I went and I read. I didn't know what the project was. I read the scene. I think I only did it once. And then, like 2 weeks later, I got a call that, hey, it looks like you're gonna possibly book this job. And oh, by the way, it's Marvel's first show with Netflix. And it's Daredevil, and I was like,
nice.
The Ben Affleck movie? No, it's not with Ben Affleck. I hate that Ben Affleck has suddenly become a theme of the podcast.
Right.
Ben Affleck, but poor Ben. But he's probably not listening. I think we can probably be pretty safe with that. I was like, I was so excited. I was blown away. But I didn't get to read any scripts the first season, so I really didn't know what was going on. I really didn't know what I was doing. I would have to ask Eldon, the plot line.
Wow.
And Eldon barely knew, even though he got to read the scripts, he just didn't remember. But yeah, so that was it was crazy. They were very secretive.
Well, and this kind of leads into one of the questions that we got from somebody on Twitter, because for a lot of people who don't know, Marcy isn't actually in the comic books. It was a character created for the show. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to know if you had a lot of liberty with the role. Were you able to interject a lot into the character, or was it pretty straightforward? Like, this is who we want Marcy to be, or how much control did you have, or input did you have in the character of Marcy?
Oh, I wouldn't say I had any control or input, which is not uncommon, by the way. That's not just a Marvel thing. I would say most of the time when you go. Unless it's one thing if you're sort of a one of the stars of the show, like Deb and Charlie and Eldon. I'm sure they had a lot of input, But for the rest of us, we're basically just reading the lines that are on the page. I think Marcy over the years was really tailored to me and sort of tailored to my strengths. Mm-hmm. But it just was one of those really lovely matches, and it was. We don't do. There's no ad-libbing or anything on the show. Mm-hmm. We pretty much stick to what's on the page. Like if we see something that we have a question about or that we're not really sure about, we certainly would bring it up before we would start shooting. Mm-hmm. And but especially during season 3, when we'd have table reads, mm-hmm. If something didn't feel right, it was very apparent, and the writers are so good. All 3 seasons. I mean, the writers are just amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can only think of one time that there was a line in the table read, and I remember reading it and thinking, I wish they would change it, and I didn't say anything about it, and then sure enough, when I got to set, the line had been cut or changed. So it was just apparent. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you basically felt because it seems like it, and I don't know if it's just because of the match or just because of your skill or probably both, but it seems like you felt very comfortable in the role of Marcy. Did it feel like that to you? Did it seem like a very natural fit for you?
It always did. Yeah, it was sort of. It really was a natural fit for me. It's just sort of. That Marcy's such about the essence and such about the attitude, and I think that's just something I sort of naturally bring to the work. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there was a scene in episode 2, which was actually my favorite Marcy Foggy scene. Which now that I guess we've been canceled, I guess it's not. I guess I can talk about it. But there was this great scene between the two of us that sort of established our relationship for season 3, and they cut it. Which at first I was so bummed about. Because it was one of my favorite scenes that we shot. Right. But then I really thought about it in the context of the show. And first of all, they had so much amazing stuff, and they had so many good characters. I mean, and I kept thinking, I was like, oh God, if that 4 or 5 minutes would have taken away, what would you have cut from that episode? Right. And put there instead. And I guess they felt like they probably just didn't need it, to establish the I guess they just felt like they didn't need it, or who knows. Mm-hmm. But other than that, everything we shot always aired. And lines were never cut. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, I shouldn't even say often, most of the time when you do a TV show, what you're shooting is vastly different than what ends up appearing on the screen.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta say, I loved the progression between Marcy and Foggy.
Yeah.
I think and Eldon had such a chemistry.
Seriously.
And I'm really bummed because I was kind of hoping that we were going to see it go even further in season 4.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly
I was
by the end of
really hoping for that. I know, and I think we would. I mean, it's just my opinion, but I think we would have. I mean, there's really 2 directions to go with Marcy and Foggy, which is either they get married or she dies.
Right.
Well, one of those 2 major things I think would have happened.
Hell yeah.
I just love how the first, like, the whole Foggy Bear thing, and just like how she's totally in control, but she loves him to death. It's like, you're gonna do what I want you to do, but I love you to death. And it's just it was just like I thought their relationship and the chemistry was fantastic.
And also, even more than that, like, I just really enjoyed the character depth in Marcy. She seems like a very surface person, and then it really showed at the end of season 1 when she was so instrumental in the whole, the whole bust of all the criminals and everything like that. It really showed, just a whole nother level of her. And that's when I really started to really enjoy the character of Marcy. I was like, okay, there's a lot more going on here that behind that tough exterior.
Yeah.
And I thought it was such a good character.
Very 3-dimensional, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I loved it.
To your credit, I think that's
definitely.
vastly due to your skill and your interpretation of the character, without doubt.
It's partially, but it's also the writing. But
I'll take the compliment, she says.
50-50, right? 50-50.
Our jobs are really easy when the writing is good.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to get into your skill in a little bit here. I want to talk about Law and Order SVU in a little bit, but I think we got another question from Twitter.
Yeah, we do. A fan asked, if season 4 were to happen, what character would you like to have more scenes with other than Foggy?
Oh gosh.
That's a tough one, right?
I mean, I guess my life dream I would love to have a scene with Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh.
Yeah.
If we're just playing this hypothetical game, then forget it. I could say whoever I want, right?
Exactly.
So I guess Vincent D'Onofrio. I think I got to work with Deb a little bit in season 1 in our first scene, and then Deb's a good friend of mine, so I would always have enjoyed like a Karen. I think Karen and Marcy in season 4. I mean, if I were writing it, I think they would have been friends.
Yeah,
Like,
I can see that.
They sort of insinuated that.
Yeah.
I think this season that was happening.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been nice to show like a strong alliance between the 2 of them.
Absolutely.
And Karen needs a girlfriend too. She needs a gal pal to
right?
deal with all this stuff with.
I just imagine like Marcy always trying to take her like shopping or whatever,
Yeah.
and like, rolling her eyes, and then suddenly it's a totally different show.
Oh, that'd be great.
Exactly.
Well, there's a couple of ideas. Here's a couple. One, I thought a musical episode would have been brilliant.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, man.
Now that we know your musical background, how awesome would have that been? I could just totally see that go down.
Oh man.
And 2,
that's super fantasy. Yeah.
Right.
That one.
And 2, doing our research, we saw this great clip with you actually talking about Vincent and Halloween.
Yeah.
And Kingpin has a kid, so
It was like the first time y'all met or something.
Yeah, so further down the line, Marcy and Foggy show up at Kingpin and Vanessa's door
Right.
with the son, and you're in your full suit.
I love it. And we're all friends. It's a dream sequence. It's just it's like in season 3 when they did one episode that was all Deb's backstory. We'll just have one episode that's a whole dream sequence.
Absolutely, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah. It would be funny.
So let's talk about the Save Daredevil campaign, because, as you mentioned at the top, the Daredevil fans are just, top notch.
Yeah.
And they've started this online campaign that's just taken off massively worldwide. All of you guys have been wonderful, because you all have gotten behind it and signed on to it and made appearances for it and everything. How incredible is that? What's that feel like as an actor, to be involved in a project where people are so connected and so involved with it that they would make this movement to try to save it?
I'm just beyond touched. I mean, it really, it was so sad and so shocking when the show got canceled. And so to have this just like outpour of affection from the fans, it really just, it made the process so much better and so much easier, and I'm just so grateful. I mean, the people who love Daredevil and the Save Daredevil and everyone who tweets at me, who comments on my Instagram page, I really think I will never have another experience like this in my career. I mean, I'm knocking on wood. It would be great to have another one, but I'm very aware of how lucky we are to to have had this sort of connection with the fans.
Yeah, it really seems like the whole group of the Daredevil cast and behind the scenes are just like a tight-knit family almost. So it's really cool to hear you guys talk about that and especially reach out to the fans and interact with them too.
Well, we were, and Daredevil was part of this sort of Marvel family, but also, we did 3 seasons over like 5 years. I mean, it was a long time.
Yeah.
So if you're right. Everyone really, really liked each other. Everyone was friendly and close. I mean, it's just a nice group of people. There's no attitudes. There's no like stories from behind the scenes of like so and so blah blah blah. Like that doesn't exist on the show. It's
right.
Wow.
Well, and we were talking about as well, if Daredevil was to come back in another form on Hulu, we were talking about maybe as an animated series, try to get all you guys to voice your characters as an anime series. But I was also thinking that you guys looked like such a tight-knit group. So would you be open to coming back for at least voicing some characters?
I would be open to anything having to do with Daredevil.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
You just go ahead and suggest it, and I will say yes.
Awesome.
As long as it's legal. Yeah.
We'll be sure to tell everybody.
That's right. Now, that brings up another question, though. We saw that Eric Olson, showrunner, just signed a new deal with Amazon for 2 years. I mean, would you guys... we know your answer now, but how do you guys feel about moving forward if Disney and Marvel were able to get around this whole thing with Netflix and allow you guys to continue without Eric? I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Are you okay coming back with another showrunner? Or
it's hard to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many moving pieces that go into reviving a show. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's not like we've heard these stories about these like network shows that get canceled, right? And then, I can't think of the name of the shows off the top of my head, but then somebody comes in and picks it up right away, or the network changes their mind and they bring it back,
right?
Because the fan outpouring. But I think this situation is just complicated because, Netflix didn't cancel it. At least I don't think, from everything I've read, and I don't really know anything that you guys don't know, to be honest. But there was a Forbes article that said that Daredevil was something like the 4th most watched show on Netflix.
Right.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was either the 4th or the 5th. But if that's true, let's just go ahead and say that's true, right? Like, that's not why they canceled the show. It wasn't because of lack of viewers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I do know that, like, we've heard, that they do have rights to the property for a while. Had you guys heard that too?
Right. Yeah.
For like
this whole
2 years.
that they can't appear anywhere else for 2 years. Yeah, we've heard that.
Yeah, I don't know the details and I don't know the time span, but yes, I have heard something along the lines of that. So the idea that if it were to happen, that everyone involved would be available after that period of time,
It'd be rough.
It's probably just not realistic.
Yeah.
So to answer your first question, Eric Olson's amazing. He is, like, as far as I'm concerned, he's just a writing god, and I am so excited to see what he does next. But if I think that everyone would be totally open. If Daredevil has a life somewhere else, I think people would be open if they're available, and you just got to roll with the punches if somebody's not. I don't know what that will look like, or
Absolutely.
if it,
Right.
who knows?
That's kind of where an animated option would be better in some ways, is that, it's kind of easier to work around schedules with voice acting than, more so than in person. So
this is the first that I've heard of that idea, but that sounds like a great idea.
Absolutely. And, you brought up, and we talk about it a lot in our industry news section, I feel like it's unfortunate for people like yourself and the people involved with the show and even behind the scenes and below the line with the crew and stuff that it would appear that Netflix made the decision because of Disney getting ready to ramp up and start their own streaming service, and it seems to be more along the lines of a business decision, in response to another company's, and that's so unfortunate for the people like yourself that are involved in this project
Right.
who really aren't involved with any of that, and you're just
Exactly.
enjoying a good run and a good show, and the fans are enjoying it and watching it. So to have it kind of end the way it did, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, we were shocked. I mean, even after Luke and Iron Fist got canceled, there was still no doubt in my mind that Daredevil would go into a season 4.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And then after Daredevil got canceled, I don't think any of us were surprised that Jessica and Punisher got canceled. But this whole marriage between Netflix and Marvel has employed so many people in New York over the past 5 years.
Oh,
I can't even
absolutely.
tell you, it's been so amazing for production. So. Yeah, it's sad all around, and I don't know if we'll ever know the full story of what happened,
Right.
of why Netflix did. Maybe it was because of the Disney streaming service. Maybe it was just too expensive. This was one of the first deals they made, for shows. I mean, because Daredevil was early on in Netflix.
Yeah.
Sure was.
Short history of, their short history of their kingdom,
Yeah.
and so. Maybe it was a money thing. I just, who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an
good
excellent point, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now you bring up New York because you have done a lot of New York productions as well. Law and
Yeah.
Order, The Good Wife, so much of the stuff that's shot in that area. I want to bring up the SVU appearance that you recently did. I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I think one of the hardest things for an actor to do is act without saying anything. And I feel like 75% of your performance there, you didn't say a word until you got on the stand, 3/4 of the way through the show. And it was all physical. It was the looks on your face or the movement of your body. And I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal the way you pulled that off. Well done.
Oh, Dustin, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you saying that. That was a really like you said, I have done so many shows in New York, and Law and Order has been around 20 years, right?
Right.
So when I first came to New York as a young child, I remember taking meetings with the casting director, and reading for kind of small parts on the show, and not getting them, not even getting past casting. And then, all these years later, I mean, that wasn't 20 years ago, but that was let's say 15 years ago, right?
Right.
And then all these years later, they just called and offered me this part. And so it was really neat to see sort of what's happened, because I've done so many other shows, I'm at the point where, sometimes you just, you just get offered stuff. And I was so excited to do it. And they were like, listen, it's, just so you know, it's only this kind of one scene where you speak, but you're really, they were talking me into doing it.
Right.
And I'm like, guys, you had me at hello. It's okay. I want to do it. I want to go work with Mariska. It's cool. Paul Malcolm playing my lawyer. I'll be there.
There you go. Yeah.
So no, it was that was a really interesting process,
Oh, yeah,
and a unique episode for the show. It's totally different from what they normally do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. To see them down in the recess area of the court, just going at each other, and say, yeah, really different.
I know. It was who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? It was yeah.
Well, that's a great explanation. Yeah, that's
It was quite the night of television, I thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought so. I've been a fan since the get-go with Law and Order, so yeah, it was fun to see.
Great.
Fun to see. So
Yeah.
we definitely want to talk about NCIS New Orleans because, like I said, we're right outside of New Orleans. I spent the majority of my life in New Orleans, so real familiar with the area. And I was doing our research. I saw you seem to be a pretty big fan of NOLA.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it down there.
How could you not be?
Exactly, right? It's just the most unique city I think I've ever been in, honestly.
It is. It's amazing. It's great to visit. That set is just the nicest people in show business. So for me, that's like a dream job. I mean, when they called me and asked me to come back for season 5, I was over the moon.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
I just get to eat. I get to act. I get to wear pretty clothes. I mean, I'm just in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the best job ever.
I've got to bring it up because I have to know what's your favorite New Orleans cuisine because the food is to die for down there. So what's your favorite New Orleans meal?
So I love fish. And so I always go to places with great seafood, like Pesh, and I'm into seafood. But my favorite, I actually do have a favorite dish, and it's at Emerald's. It's the stuffed oysters at Emerald's, and the barbecued shrimp at Emerald's. So every time I'm down there, I try to make once. So I remember going there with a group of people and having it, and how you have appetizers in a group of people, and you have one bite or one oyster, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Then the next trip I went back by myself. I just decided to go sit at the bar at Emerald's and order those two things. Yeah, they're so rich. You're not meant to eat the whole thing by yourself. I had such a stomach. I mean, nothing to do with the quality of the food, but just the richness.
Yeah, right.
So I learned my lesson. Only go to Emerald's with another person.
Well, I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm actually going next month. I turn 30, which I'm struggling with.
Baby. Congratulations.
So I'm going to go and spend just one night in New Orleans and go to the Audubon and Sectarian. And I was actually trying to think of places to go eat, and that's a really great idea. I love shrimp and fish too, so I'm going to keep that in mind. I might just have to take a Amy Rutberg recommendation there and go have.
But there's so many good restaurants.
I know.
It's never ending.
That's why it's so hard. That's why I've been struggling with it. It's so tough, but that's a really good recommendation. I'm going to keep that in mind.
So were you scared of
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Were you scared of the mud bugs and crawfish, or did you just jump right into that?
Nah, I just jump right in.
There you go.
I live in New York. It's hard to scare me. Yeah. we have mice and rats.
Good point. Good point.
I was in South Africa over the holidays with my family, and we're in Cape Town, which is this beautiful city. And I remember we walked into a restaurant with a group of people to get some dessert, and one of the women we were with was looking up on the wall, and there were I don't know if they were cockroaches, some sort of bugs that were on the wall, and she's like, "You guys, we have to leave. We can't stay here. Look, there's cockroaches." And my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, "Yeah, so."
That's great.
That is so funny. So, what do you have coming up? What can we expect to see from you in the future? If you're allowed to talk about anything. I know how that goes. By the way, I also saw a really great quote from you, which I thought it's kind of a trend amongst a lot of our guests that we have on. But I think it really sticks out. I loved how you said that acting is only 20% of your job. The rest of it is auditioning. Or I just thought that was a really good quote, because we hear that a lot. And you said it in this interview, really, that most of the time it ends with not getting it.
Yeah, professional auditioners.
Yes.
It's true. Yeah, 20% of it is actually acting, and the rest of it is it's auditioning. It's hustling. Yeah.
And being persistent and not giving up. Yeah.
Exactly. So what can we expect? What do you have coming up in the future?
Well, I'm going back to New Orleans. I don't know if I can officially say that what I'm doing in New Orleans, but I guess it's fairly obvious. So I'll be spending April in New Orleans. And then after that, I don't know. With our acting, with these jobs, we don't really know too far in advance what's happening. I literally was just auditioning for something that would be and by the way, I have, this is, I just auditioning for something that would start filming the day after tomorrow. Oh. And yesterday I didn't have that audition, and today I did, and so by tomorrow my plans could totally change.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
But it's but I do know I'm going to be in New Orleans in April, which I'm really looking forward to.
So a certain of Angel of Death return, maybe, wink, wink.
I don't know. I didn't say that. Maybe I'm going to do another show that shoots. Claws shoots in New Orleans.
That's true.
And
Preacher.
Preacher.
Yeah.
Preacher. And what's the one based on the scary movies where you get to kill someone one day a year?
The Purge.
The Purge shoots there. So, I could be doing any of those shows.
You sure could be. You sure could be. I
totally could.
I would love to see you on any of those shows. That'd be pretty awesome.
Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger. Oh my gosh.
Me too.
Marcy should show up on Cloak and Dagger. Logan, I love that idea.
They don't do that very often, do they? Once you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you just play that part, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But hey, lawyers travel, right? I mean, you could come down and investigate something in New Orleans. I totally see that.
I just feel like they should use because I'm not in the comics. There's no reason not to use Marcy in another franchise.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly. Let's start that campaign. Okay, we'll figure out a hashtag. We'll get it started.
Let's do the Save Marcy campaign.
Save Marcy. Marcy
now
and
Nola.
Nola.
Olsen has a fancy new job. Let's just do Save Marcy.
That's right.
Let's just make it Marcy everywhere.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Perfect. So, well, how we like to usually end up the show is we have a lot of people that are listening that are trying to get into the industry or maybe have aspirations of getting into the industry. So we always like to ask our guests, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to become an actor in the industry or theater, and maybe some pitfalls that they should maybe look out for or avoid trying to get into?
Oh, I love this topic. So I'll just give you a couple things that in no particular order as they come to my head. Studying, having an acting technique is always helpful. Mm-hmm. So, if you're like a young person, use any opportunity you can to act, to learn how to be a better actor, to take acting classes, all that stuff. But I think that the most valuable thing that you could be doing as somebody who wants to be getting into the entertainment industry, whether it's acting or directing or writing, is creating your own content. I can't stress that enough. It's the golden age of television. People need content. Meet other people who will collaborate with you. Like if you're an actor and you're like a little bit funny, like go hook up with a writer who's a lot funny and write.
Exactly.
And
Nice.
it's so easy to do now with the iPhones, the capability now that you have to create your own content. Yeah, that's great.
And I mean, to
Yeah.
introduce yourself to other
Don't
actors.
do it the traditional way that I did, which is just going on audition after audition after audition. Create your own content.
Exactly. And it's so easy to find other actors in your area. I mean, with social media nowadays.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's my and if things are slow or things aren't happening, like just keep writing.
Exactly.
Do things that you're in control of. You're in control of your computer and your hands and your brain.
Yep.
Wow, that's
love that.
really
Yeah,
great
that
advice.
is great advice. And you are active. I will say you're very active on social media.
Yeah.
Very active with the fans and very active yourself, just posting and sharing. You do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So it is a great tool. I mean, like Logan said, it is a great tool these days to get yourself out there.
Oh yeah, and I say, and also, yeah, that's another piece of advice too. I think social media has just become so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think try to recognize your brand like early on. Like what is it that you give that nobody else gives, and then sort of try to do your socials and practice it that way.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I love that.
I do too.
Well, I think the key word is there, brand. You
Exactly.
have to
Yeah.
realize that if you're going to try to get into this industry,
You
be
gotta
it an
brand
actor
yourself.
or director, you are a brand.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Totally.
great advice.
Totally.
Great advice. So, okay, well, let's tell everybody where they can find you. You, like we said, you are very active, and you are on Instagram and Twitter. So, tell everybody the handles that they can find you at.
Yeah, I'm at Amy Rutberg on Instagram and on Twitter, and I read everything that you guys post on my page. So if you comment, I read it. And so, yeah, definitely give me a shout.
That's awesome.
And I'll continue to post on other projects, and I'm always digging up old Daredevil photos, so you never know
Nice.
when like a new
Always.
one's going to come out.
Always.
That's
I'm
awesome.
always doing that. I definitely keep some in the vault, like, to just like, to give out. But yeah, you guys are such a delight. Like, really, you guys are so sweet, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the research you did on me. And
Oh, yeah.
really, that's really heartwarming, and I really, really appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys reaching out to the Save Daredevil fans, and they should just know, like, obviously I don't know anything that's. I don't have any more information than everyone else does, but I do know, and I've said this before, like, your voice matters. Like, the
Absolutely.
social media stuff posting, it does not go unnoticed. That I know for sure.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and kudos to you and the entire cast, honestly, because you guys do such a wonderful job of interacting with your fans,
Yeah.
which is why I think the fan base is the way it is for you all. Unfortunately, these days you don't see a lot of people do that. So the fact that you guys take the time to do that, and as you said, you guys actually read everything and you interact with your fans, and that's just a wonderful thing to see. And so kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, and just one more plug, speaking of Daredevil, because I just happened to see it 2 nights ago. I don't know if you guys have watched. I don't know, if you guys are into D&D or if any of your listeners are into D&D, but Deb's show that she created, this
Yes.
Relics and Rarities, it's really cool.
Yeah, are
That's
you
what
going
I
to be on
heard.
it?
No, they already filmed it,
okay.
and my My Dungeons and Dragons skills are very novice. I've just played with Deb and like our little Daredevil group a few times, but it was so fascinating to see her in her element and to see her doing her thing with people who are really good at it. It was like really cool.
Oh yeah, the Kevin Smith episode is fantastic. I mean, it's really worth a watch if you're even remotely interested in D&D, or if you just like Deborah Ann Wall. And who doesn't fall into one of those two categories? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. At least one or the other. It's like a Venn diagram, you know.
Can't tell Amy's mom was in PR at all, can you? I think some of that rubbed off a little bit. Well, and listen, just thank you so much. We appreciate all the kind words you had for us. But listen, we are so appreciative that you came on the show and spent some time talking to us. And we were really excited about it. And you delivered. You have just been an absolute gem to talk to today.
For sure.
You guys are sweet. And listen, hit me up if you want me to come back in a few months, if I've got some other cool projects to talk about or whatever. Feel free to hit me up anytime.
Absolutely. We would love that. Maybe even do it in person. I mean, since we're so close to New Orleans, who knows how things work out, but we would love to do that.
You never know.
And hey, maybe I'll see you next month at Emerald's and eating some fish and barbecue shrimp.
If you see me, David, if you see me next month at Emerald's, you come up to me. I will buy you a drink for your 30th birthday.
There you go.
Okay,
I will be on the lookout.
We can share the stuffed oysters. Okay.
Nice.
Fantastic. Well, listen, stay warm since it's cold up there.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. And you have a great rest of the week, and we will definitely be in touch soon.
Thanks, guys. All the best, really. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.